This is an SM Media production. Hello folks, and welcome to the 4th episode of the Scottish Football Show right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike and I'm the host this week, and I hope you're all doing really well. This week on the show, I'm doing it by myself. I'm all alone, and I'm just going to open the floor up to all you viewers. I put a post up on Facebook on the page yesterday. If there was any questions you wanted me to ask about Scottish football, I would do a Q&A for this week's episode, and the response has been amazing. I can't thank you all enough for sending me all your questions. I'm just going to get started. I'm just going to go through every question and give you the best answer I can. We'll start with Jeff Reid. Jeff Reid asked the question, what do you think of the choice for the referee for next week's Old Firm match? I saw it was John Beaton. I think, again, we know John Beaton got a lot of stick for his performance a couple of years ago in the fixture. We need to stop kind of doing things like this. Like, John Beaton is going to referee the game fairly. I think, like, he's been put in charge of a job. He's got to do the job to the best of his ability. Is he going to make mistakes? It's an Old Firm game, of course he is. I think every referee would make a mistake in a big game like that. It's going to be a unique feel to this week's Old Firm game, and I'm really, really excited about it. But we just hope he does a good job. He's got the kind of... He's helped by the players. I don't think it's going to be a normal Old Firm fixture. I think there's no doubt about that. But I do think John Beaton is as good as anybody. Like, I think he's a good official. I don't think there's many good officials in Scottish football, so we've got to just give him a chance and see what happens. I think it's going to be a great contest, and I hope it's a contest that doesn't erupt in any fights or anything like that. Dougie Nutt asked, who do you think will win the Old Firm game next week? It's a very tough one. I think there'll be goals in it. I think it'll be a really, really good contest. Celtic have been playing pretty flat as of late. I think that's kind of been there to all see, but they've been getting wins. Like, they've won the last 8 games in the league. Like, something's going right. They're not playing well, but they're getting results. Rangers, on the other hand, have been pretty impressive. I think the defensive record stands out to me. I don't know. I'm going to be boring. I'm going to go for a 2-each draw. I just think there'll be goals in it. I think both sides can be quite weak at the back. I know Rangers have done really well defensively this season, but we saw against Hibs that they can make mistakes. I'm going to go 2-each. I'm going to sit on the fence with that one. Ross Murdercast, in your opinion, who will be the team's most important player in the upcoming Old Firm match? On the Celtic side, I would say Scott Brown. I think the evidence speaks for itself. I think his record in the game is outstanding. And his performance when he came on against St Johnstone in the 2-0 win last weekend just sums up who he is. He's that leadership on the field that nobody in that Celtic team has. He came on and just kind of got the team through it. 2 goals when he came on. He didn't play any part in the goals, but just his leadership, I think, is enough for him. I think he's a big player. I think he's a certainty to start. I think we'll talk about the team later on. I think there's a question about that later on, but I'm going to go Scott Brown on the Celtic side just for his overall leadership skills. Rangers, I think you could have 2 or 3, but I'm going to go for Ryan Kent. I think Ryan Kent's been the star man so far this season. When Rangers brought him in for £8 million, there was a lot of question marks, but is he worth that? I think we're beginning to see that he's coming on to a good game. Last season he was a bit kind of off and on, but this season he's coming on to a really good game. I'm going to go for Ryan Kent for Rangers. I think it'll be a great contest, though. I'm really, really excited about it. Lewis Cooper asked, do you think Alfredo Morelos will finally break his goal drought against Celtic this Saturday? I think he probably won't. I think you look at Alfredo Morelos this season, he's not been anywhere near the standards you can expect. I think, obviously, the transfer rumours have kind of got on top of him. But I see a lot of potential in how he's going to play. I don't know. I think it's tough to say. Like, his performances in Old Firms over the past couple of years have been really, really good, but they've all been kind of bringing other players into the game. I haven't really thought this kind of past couple of weeks. Like, I'm really looking forward to seeing him against Celtic, because he's not done enough for me against Celtic. I think that's how you're judged in Scotland. I can see I can see Morelos playing. I can see him having a pretty good game, but I don't see him scoring. I just don't. I hope I'm wrong, because if Morelos scores, I think a lot of pressure will be off his back, because that is the one thing you can hold against him, is that he hasn't done it against Celtic. But I think if he plays well, he'll get chances. I mean, he'll get chances. I think the Celtic defence is pretty weak. I think he'll get chances. I think his hold-up play is excellent, and he brings a lot of other players into the game as well with his build-up play. He's been playing more kind of up the park lately. Like, he's been coming for the ball a lot more. So is that a kind of thing that he's going to bring kind of wingers into it? We don't know, but I hope to see him score, because I think he's a really, really good player. But I think that is the one thing that's held against him. But I think it's very, very tough to say. His start of the season hasn't kind of filled me with confidence. Carl McPike asks, who is the best player you've seen play in the SPL? Well, SPL to me is from 1998 onwards, so I'm going to go for Henrik Larsson. I just think Henrik Larsson was way too good for Scottish football. He used to terrify me. Like, whenever he used to play against Rangers, he was just so good. He was just electric to watch. The first game I remember him was the game at Parkhead, maybe 2002. He just come back for a horrible injury, and he just ragdolled the Rangers defence. I think we beat Celtic 1-3-1. I think he scored 2. It was excellent. I'm fortunate to have seen him live. He's one of the best players I've ever seen live. He was tremendous. The problem with Henrik Larsson was that you never saw, once when he got injured, you thought that was maybe it. He came back and he was so much better. He goes on and wins a Champions League for Barcelona. Like, how many players in Scottish football will ever do that again? Like, not many, but I think Henrik Larsson will definitely be top of that list for me. Lewis Cooper asks another question. Do you think Steven Gerrard's time as a Rangers manager has been a successful one so far? And do you think Rangers can win the league? Excuse me. I think Rangers can win the league. I think, though, they'll need to overcome this blip they've been on the past 2 years after Christmas, because they've done the hard thing. They've got the result against Celtic before Christmas, went into the winter break very strong, and fallen off a cliff. I don't know why, but if it happens again, then there's definitely something to it. I think Steven Gerrard's time at Rangers has been pretty successful. He's not won a trophy, obviously, so that'll be kind of held against him. But from where they were, from where Rangers were before Steven Gerrard came in, I'll go back always to the 5-0 game against Celtic at Celtic Park, where I've never seen a Rangers team as bad as that in my life. Like, they were just so poor. Celtic just ran through them like they weren't there. I think, though, you've got to look at the fact is, if Gerrard doesn't win a trophy this season, is he up to the job? I don't know, but I think he deserves a lot of credit for the team he's built. He's brought in some great players. He's not as a bad transfer window since he came in, so I would say definitely. I think he's been successful. He's done really well in Europe, but you're judging trophies in Scotland, especially at Rangers and at Celtic. You're judging trophies. Tommy Burns is a perfect example of that. Tommy Burns was in a similar position to Steven Gerrard when he came in. He had a horrible team to deal with when he brought a few good players in, but just never got in front of Rangers and ultimately lost his job. And if Gerrard doesn't win the league this season, or even win a trophy, I think he'll be in the similar position. But he has had a successful spell, and I do think Rangers can win the league, but they need to overcome the severely bad blip that goes on in after Christmas. Jay Forbes asked, do you think VAR should be introduced into top-tier Scottish football? I think it should. I don't know if it will, because can the clubs afford it? I saw an argument last year that Craig Levein put up that Celtic and Rangers should be financing it with their European money. That's not going to happen. Whether you want to or not, that's not going to happen. I think it should be implemented, because anything to help the officials out, because every week there's some bad decision. We saw VAR being used in England, and some people are for it, some people are against it. I think it helps the officials out. I think the officials are getting less criticism down south. So I would say, yeah, it should be. I would think, but are the clubs or the SPFL going to fork out for it? I don't know. It's definitely worth it, but I don't see them doing it in the next couple of years anyway, especially with all that's going on right now. I think money is a big thing right now, and I don't think they've got a lot of it. So I think we'll be waiting a couple of years for that one. Adam Forsythas, do you think this is the strongest squad Gerrard has had in terms of strength and depth since he took over the job at Ibrox? I think he's getting it all together, yeah. I think he's had a pretty good transfer window so far. He's filled out a lot of areas they needed. They needed strikers. Rangers needed strikers at the beginning of the season. Like I said at the time, Morelos and Defoe aren't going to win you a league. If one of them's injured, it's not good for to have just won. So they've went and got Roof and Nathan. I think at the time, Roof and Nathan were the replacements for Morelos, who was strongly suspected to leave. He's not leaving now. He's staying at least until January. So they've got that squad depth up front. I think they've filled a good couple of key areas. I think they still need a kind of replacement not a replacement right back for Tavernier. That's a bit harsh, but I think they need somebody to compete with him, because if Tavernier was to get injured, it's Nathan Patterson. Looks a really good prospect, but it's a lot to ask an 18-year-old to get into a side like that and be as consistent as Tavernier is. So yeah, I think this is the strongest his squad's been. I think now compared to kind of a few seasons ago, you're looking at sides and think if he gets injured, there's another guy coming in. Like we saw the past couple of weeks, like Jordan Jones, Calvin Bassey come in against Motherwell and looked really, really good. So you're all right now. I think you're all right in terms of squad depth. John McLaughlin, do you think Scotland will reach the Euros? I don't know. I think Serbia are probably the favourites to get through. I think Serbia have just got a bit more up front. I think Mitrovic, Luka Jovic, Adam Lajic, they're a bit better than what Scotland have. Not to say like Scotland they've kind of been a bit better in the past couple of weeks, but I just think Serbia are a very, very tough side. It will suit Scotland. The game will suit Scotland getting away from home and defending. Steve Clarke loves to defend, so hopefully, I would love to see Scotland in a major tournament, but I can't see past Serbia. I think Serbia will just have enough. Hamish Husband, can you remember your first Rangers game at Ibrox when you were young? Who was your favourite player, and did you see Gaza live? My first Rangers game at Ibrox was in 2001, and it was against Fenerbahce in the UEFA Cup under Dick Advocat. It was just an amazing experience to go and see that game in that was your first game. The game will be remembered for Michael Moles getting sent off for having a kick out at the centre half, and the Fenerbahce goalkeeper at the time was Rustu Rebka, if anybody remembers him. He was the Turkish goalkeeper the year later in the World Cup, and he basically got Moles sent off. He was going over to the referee, basically just with his hands out saying, why are you not sending him off? Moles received a red card and Rangers went out. I think they lost 2-1 in the second leg, but since then I was hooked. Since then I was hooked in football. Just going to a game like that was crazy. I loved it. Who was my favourite player when I was young? My favourite Scottish player was Barry Ferguson, just because he was a Scotland captain, Rangers captain. The first full season I had was the 2002-2003 season, and he was as good a player as I think you'll see that season. I think he just took that season with the scruff of the neck. He was unbelievable that season. He was Rangers' best player. He was unbelievable, just brilliant. He was a brilliant player. Was probably the most gutted I've ever been when he left for Blackburn the year after. I've got a funny story about that. I went to the old Rangers shop down in Ayr. If anybody remembers that, it was down near the old Woolworths, across from Paul at Williamson Butchers. If that's where you remember it now. But there used to be a Rangers shop in there, and I went and got the new Rangers shop with Barry Ferguson 6 in the back of it. And the day later, he went to Blackburn, and I remember crying. So that was how much I loved him. I still think Barry Ferguson was unplayable that season. Comfortably the best player I've seen in a Rangers shirt that season. He was class. Did I see Gaza live? I was born the year after Gaza left. No, sorry, I wasn't. I was born 1996, so I would have missed Gaza. Never seen Gaza live. Was very fortunate to meet him. He was doing a book signing at Waterstones in Ayr years ago, and he was a lovely guy, absolutely lovely guy. Just spent time, I was a young boy, just hooked in football. Heard all these stories about how Gaza was unbelievable. It was, seeing you look back in videos, you just realise how good a player he was. But I was very fortunate to meet him, but I regret so much that I never saw him live, because I would have loved to have seen him play. Lisa Alcroft asked, do you think Rangers have a realistic chance of winning silverware this year? If so, which one? I think they have to. I think they have to win silverware this year, or it's another year where the league's passed them by. I think they'll win a cup. I mean, I think last season, they outplayed Celtic in the League Cup final. Like, they were brilliant against Celtic, but just never scored. And Celtic went up the park, scored for a set piece, and that was it. I think they have to win a cup this year. I don't think a cup's enough. I think they need to win the league. Rangers need to win the league this season, or there's going to be severe calls for Gerrard's head, because Celtic have won 10 in a row, and 10 in a row is the ultimate thing to stop for Rangers fans. So I think they will win a cup. I think this season will be crazy compared to any other season we've seen. So I think the Rangers players, I think this is maybe wrong to say, but I think a lot of Rangers players are thriving off playing without fans and without playing with that criticism. I don't know if that's maybe right, but you've certainly seen it in performances. There's not as much pressure for the stands. I think that does play into the thing. I don't agree with it. I don't like that, but you can certainly see it. So I think they have a realistic chance of winning silverware, but I would really, really say the league's a priority for Rangers this season, as far as I'm concerned. Fraser Little asked, do you think Lauren Shankland has what it takes to cement a place in the first team for Scotland? I really like Lauren Shankland. I think he's a really good player. I think he's the finisher that they need. The only problem is he international class? That's what we don't know. I've seen enough from him to say he is, but he's not starting. So he isn't preferred to the likes of Dykes and McBurney. Even last night we saw kind of Ryan Fraser playing a bit up top. So I hope so. I really like Lauren Shankland, but I would like to see him hitting the ground running in the league first. I think if you're going into a game against Serbia in the playoff and you've got Lauren Shankland on the bench and you're needing a goal, I think he's a perfect option. So I hope he can, because I really like him, and I like him as a person as well. I think he's a really good guy. He comes across really well. So I hope so. Kieran Mackay, what is your best current 11 outside of the Old Firm in Scottish football, and who do you see in the Scottish youth setup making real inroads in the national team in the next couple of years? That's a really tough one. Best current 11 outside the Old Firm. I don't know if you mean best current 11, like who's the best team outside the Old Firm, because if that's the case, I would say Hibs, because I think Hibs are far better. But I can pick out some players I think are really good outside the Old Firm. I would say Alan Campbell, Kevin Nisbet, Lauren Shankland. I really, really like, and I'm going to sound a bit daft here, but I really, really like a lot of players at Hamilton. I don't think they're anywhere near as good as some other players, but a lot of them just seem to me just to be good players, and they'll get there. Like the young players coming through, there's a few players that are like 18 and 19. Hopefully one of them comes up, but I'm really, really excited to see a couple of them coming through. I've kept a good eye on them. The likes are Minot and Kyle Monroe. I really, really like them. I've followed them for a couple of years and I hope they do well. The youth setup, I don't know if there's... I looked at the under-21s last night and I was like, I don't think a lot of them are getting through. Alan Campbell, I would say, was probably the one that sticks out. Billy Gilmour's the obvious one. Billy Gilmour will definitely be he'll probably be a Scotland captain. I think just as long as he keeps his head screwed on and keeps his feet in the ground, I think he'll be really, really good. We saw just how well he's adapted to life at Chelsea. If you can get him fit and get him with the right attitude, I think he's got a great attitude. I've been fortunate enough to speak with him a couple of times, and I think he's a really, really nice guy. So I would say Billy Gilmour's the obvious one, but I like Alan Campbell as well. Graham Anderson, who's the best player you've ever seen playing Scottish football? I don't know. I think that's a tough one. I've said Henrik Larsson for the best player, but I'm going to go with I'm going to have two players in here who didn't play in Scottish football for very long, but I loved watching them. Craig Bellamy, when he was at Celtic. He was at Celtic for 6 months. He came up from Newcastle on loan because him and Graham Souness had a massive argument. He came up here and basically carried Celtic. It was so impressive. I've never seen a player. I remember the Old Firm he played in at Ibrox, and Celtic won 2-1, and he was absolutely amazing that day. I remember coming out saying to my dad, Celtic won the league because of Craig Bellamy, and we didn't win the league obviously, but his 6 months up here was good a period as I've seen for a player in Scottish football. And the second one is quite a personal one because I absolutely love this signing. When Frank de Boer came to Rangers, Ronald de Boer was there as well. I love Ronald de Boer still to this day. I think Ronald de Boer was amazing. But when Frank came, I remember Rangers were really, really toiling. It was a really, really poor season. The team of 2002-2003 get split up, and it was just a really, really bad season. And I remember coming home from school, I think it was home lunch or something, if I remember, and my dad was in. My dad was never in. Like, my dad was always at work Monday to Friday during the day. And my mum picked me up for work and said, your dad wants to tell you something. And I was thinking, this could be anything. Like, that's how seriously me and my dad took football. That we just loved it, absolutely loved it. And I was a huge Holland fan back in the day. Like, I had Holland shirts and I just loved Holland. Like, I was a Holland fan whenever they played in like World Cups and Euros. I really, really liked them. And he said, I had a wee Pro Stars as well, the wee kind of mini figures, if you remember them. And I used to collect them, and I got a Frank de Boer one that I really, really liked for some reason. And my dad says, Rangers are signing Frank de Boer. And I loved it. I absolutely loved Frank de Boer. But he came, obviously when he came to Rangers, he was past it. He was past it physically, but he still had that ability at his feet, and he was just a rock solid centre half. And he basically, he made Rangers solid at the back again. He was only there for 6 months, but I remember thinking he was unbelievable. Just his ability was just so good to watch. I really, really liked Frank de Boer. John Park, next 5 years, what will happen to Scottish football? Will Celtic still be the dominant force, or will Rangers stamp their authority? And can Gerrard be a Rangers great? I think in the next 5 years, it's very, very hard to say where we'll be. I think in the next 5 months, it's hard to say where we'll be in Scottish football because there is a lot of uncertainty, particularly in the lower leagues. I just offer my best wishes to every single person connected with Scottish football right now, because it's going to be a very, very tough time for the next couple of years to kind of get out of this horrible situation we're in. I think that Celtic team will eventually come to the kind of end of the run. I think they're slowly getting there. I think you've seen the likes of Scott Brown. Like, he's still an amazing figure in the park, but he's not the player he was. But he's still got that leadership. And I've always said, I think if Celtic were to get 10 in a row, I think Scott Brown would retire at the end of that season. That's his job done. But Rangers need to get their house in order, particularly when it comes to after Christmas. If Rangers can go over that blip, if we don't ever want to break this season, so there won't be that 3 weeks where Rangers are having to take a break, so that might help them. But in 5 years, I think we could be anywhere. I think it'll be back to Celtic Rangers, and it'll be kind of head to head. I think it'll be a lot more even. I think it's even now, but I think in 5 years, I think both sides will be kind of neck and neck. Can Gerrard be a Rangers great? He will be if he wins the league this season. I think there's no doubt about that. I think the problem with this is that he was brought in basically to stop Celtic winning 10 in a row, and if he doesn't do that, it's going to be a shame, because he's built a really, really good side, but you're judging trophies. And I really hope Gerrard's a Rangers great, because he's a great manager. He's been a great manager for Rangers so far. He's brought us great European success. But do you see Rangers going out and winning the league? I think they could, but they need to get over that blip. That blip's a big, big thing that they need to overcome. The last 2 years they haven't done it. Who knows why, but you need to do that. If you're going to win this league, you need to come over that blip after Christmas. And losing to Hamilton at home, particularly, is the one that sticks out to me, because Rangers should never be losing to Hamilton at home. So if you go over that, they've a very good chance to win the league. But I think it'll be very close this season, so I'm really looking forward to the season. Craig Gold, is there a player out there who you think can solve Scotland's woes up front? I think there is, and his name's Lee Griffiths. The big thing with Lee Griffiths is, though, you need to keep him fit and you need to keep him happy. And if he's that, I think he's Scotland's best striker. Now, I was actually quite delighted to see him score the other day, because for anybody to come through what he's come through, I think he deserves a lot of credit. So it's really nice to see somebody like that getting through kind of difficult times and getting fit. I think if he stays fit for that game, I think he could be in the squad, and I think I would even start him. I would even start him against Serbia, because even pair him up with Dykes up front, just it's one game, it's do or die. Just give yourself the best possible chance. And I think a fit Lee Griffiths is the best striker Scotland to have. Scott McLennan, do you consider the Old Firm's transfer window business to be more of a success due to keeping key players or the signings to add depth to the squad? A bit of both. I think keeping Morelos and Edouard for both sides is a big thing. You need to keep Morelos. You need to keep Morelos and Edouard, because both sides need to be at their very best this season. I don't ever think Edouard was a big threat to leave. I think he will stay until at least the end of the season. Morelos, I really thought he would leave. I was kind of thinking maybe it was best, because Rangers need a big forward role this season, and if he's going to go off and on, and if disciplinary issues, Rangers can't afford that this season. But I'm glad he stayed. I hope if you get Alfredo Morelos back to the Alfredo Morelos of last season, then they've got one of the best strikers in the league comfortably. So it'll be good. I think they've added pretty good depth as well, both sides. I think the signings are like David Turnbull, Shane Duffy for Celtic are really, really good. Rangers as well, I really, really like Kamar Roof. I think if you keep Kamar Roof fit, he'll be very, very impressive. And just getting that backbone of the team like a bit better as well. Like, we don't know much about the boy Zungu that came in and loan in deadline day, but all reports says he's what Rangers need, a bit of a box-to-box midfielder. I think I maybe even could see him getting thrown in the Old Firm. But I would say a bit of both. I would say keeping Morelos and Edouard was big for Rangers and Celtic, and they both added pretty well depth-wise. Darren McPike, who should be favourites to win the league this year? Celtic are favourites because they've done it. They've been there and done it. Rangers need to up their game. As I've said already, Rangers need to severely up their game and get a bit better after Christmas. If that's the case, then if Rangers do that, then it'll be neck and neck. But Celtic have been there and done it and got the T-shirt, whereas Rangers haven't done it yet. So that'll be very interesting. Mark Wilson, if Gerrard fails to win a trophy this season, would Rangers sack him? I don't know. I don't know if they would sack him. I think he would probably leave, because he would consider it a job not done. I don't think Rangers would sack Gerrard unless it got really, really bad, which basically if he went something like 6 games without a win, I think it would get to that stage. But the Rangers hierarchy love Gerrard. They love the job he's doing. He's done a very good job. Nobody really says how good a job he's done. He's built a really good team from a really, really shambolic team that we saw that particularly went to Parkhead in the last day of the season, the last Old Firm game a few years ago when it was 5-0. Like, to come from that to where they are now is a really, really good bit of progress for Gerrard. But you're judging trophies. I've said it from the beginning, you're judging trophies, and if Gerrard doesn't win a trophy this season, if he doesn't win the league, I think if either manager doesn't win the league, I think either one will go. So if Lennon doesn't win the league this season, I think he'll go. So I think he will leave. I think if Gerrard doesn't win a trophy, he will leave. But I think if you said to any Rangers fan, we won't win any leagues, we won't win any League Cup or Scottish Cup, we'll win a league, they would bite your hand off. I wouldn't say the same about Celtic fans. I think both sides need to win the league. I think the cups are a bonus this season. Not a bonus, that's maybe a wrong word, but the league's a be all and end all this season as far as every Rangers and Celtic fans concerned, in my opinion anyway. Mark Shankland and Ryan Nisbet have asked a similar question. What are your thoughts on the whole situation with lower league and junior football starting back up, and do you think it should go ahead, and if not, why? I feel for everybody connected with junior football right now. I think it's a very, very tough situation. From what I understand, is 7 or 8 teams have stated their intent to not go ahead with the season because of safety issues and income issues. It's a real shame, because these are the clubs that are going to struggle. Junior football, relies heavily on its match day income from fans at the gate and fans maybe in the pub before the game, things like that, like buying programmes, buying raffle tickets and things like that. They rely so much on match day income, and to not have fans in, I think it will just be such a detriment. I think that's why they've all done it. I completely understand the decision. The only thing I would say about it is that where you get terraces and that, I think you possibly could have fans in it. It would need to be done. So it would need to be done in line with government regulations, of course, but it would probably be done because when you're standing at terraces, you're standing away from. You're not standing together anyway. Especially now, like there are ways it can be done. So if there is ways to do it, then I really hope they go ahead with it. But if they're going to have a full season without fans, then it's unsustainable. It's such a shame. The only way I kind of thought it would happen would be if clubs maybe did make that investment to get kind of cameras in and charge maybe $2.99 or something for a game live to watch. I know it's no fair. It's not going to be as the income's not going to be as high as it would be, but you're still getting money in somehow. I think that could be an option, but I really, really feel for everybody connected with the whole situation. I really, really like junior football. I'm a huge fan of it, and it's just a shame because I know some people connected to the juniors, particularly like clubs like Auchinleck, Cumnock, Glenafton. They're all struggling. They're all stating their intent that they can't fulfil their fixtures. It's a shame. It's such a shame, but I just hope everybody connected comes out in a better fashion, but it's looking unlikely. But I'm just giving my best wishes to everybody connected with the whole situation, and I hope everything works out. Mark Shanklin asked another one. Since it's International Week, do you think Scotland should play their best 11 players and accommodate them as in fit them in different positions, or play the best 11 with everyone in their own positions? Steve Clarke won't. Steve Clarke will play the best 11 determined on positions because he's as organised a manager as you'll get. The only problem with it is that we've seen he's playing a couple of players out of position and they're not doing well in it. Scott McTominay isn't a centre half, and I'm sorry, but I just don't see the players like Stephen O'Donnell, Declan Gallagher. I don't think they've kind of set the world on fire with their international performances. But I can see. I've asked. There's a question coming up as well about who is my best Scotland 11. I'll give you that. But I would say if I was a manager, I would pick the best 11 with everyone in their own positions because they're playing where they are better playing. Like, I think the only person you can do that with is probably Kieran Tierney. I think we've seen him in a back three at Arsenal. He's a really good player going forward, Kieran Tierney, but he's also a good defender, so you can do that with him. Play him in a back three to kind of solve that Tierney and Robertson debacle that we have, because you've got two really good left backs and you can't play them together in the one position. So you need to work out somehow how we're going to do it. And Kieran Tierney isn't a right back, so if you want to play him left at back three, I think you would need to. But if it was up to me, I would play a best 11 determined on how the players play in their positions. I wouldn't play them out of position because I just don't think you get the best out of the players. Aidan McLean, what's your score prediction for the upcoming Old Firm, and how much of an impact will it make on the destination of the title in May? It'll be a huge impact on the destination because it's the first blood, as we put it, in the last 5 seasons. The team that's won the first Old Firm have gone on to win the league. Celtic won the first Old Firm game every year since Rangers have been back up. So stats tell you that's where the league usually goes. My overall score prediction is I'm going to be boring and go for a 2-each draw because I think both sides can make mistakes at the back in particular. It's going to be so weird to see a Rangers Celtic game with no crowd. It's just going to be something none of us ever thought we would see. But would you rather be sitting watching Rangers Celtic with no fans or not watching it at all? Everybody would agree we need football back. So it'll be a huge impact on where the title's going because that team's got the momentum going ahead. And if Rangers were to go to Parkhead and win in the first Old Firm game of the season, I think it would be a huge swing for them. I mean, they've been to Parkhead and won. That was a big thing last season, but they didn't kick on from it. Might be a bit different this year, but I'm going to say a 2-each draw, and I think it'll be a big impact in where the title's going. Ricky Colville, do you think the SPFL will be completed this season? I really hope so. Obviously, we don't know one day to the next what's going on with the current situation, but I would I would be gutted if the season didn't finish. I think though every team deserves a lot of credit for how they're going ahead with the testing. We saw with Kilmarnock last week. There was a bit of issues with testing, but they've done really well in getting, if there's positive cases, they've identified them. They're following the proper protocol, so I really hope that continues, and I really hope we're able to see the season keep going and finish the way it should be finished, as opposed to last season when it was cut early. I don't think we could have finished the season. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but it was just a mess to see basically we were all going through a difficult time, and we still are. I mean, we're still all going through a tough situation, but we just became a laughingstock in Scotland with the football and how it was working out. But I hope we finish the season. I really hope we finish the season. I think there'll be a lot of problems. There'll be a lot of problems with positive cases and things like that. It's going to be very difficult, but I hope we get there. Colin Moore, are there any lower league players that you see eventually breaking through to the national team like Robertson and Shankland? Never say never. I can't think of any right now, but I really hope that changes, because the progression of likes Andy Robertson and Lawrence Shankland's amazing to see. Andy Robertson I remember Andy Robertson playing against Rangers for Queen's Park in 2012, and he's a Premier League winner and a Champions League winner now. So if we can get more players like that, and it's only going to help the national team. Like we need players coming through from anywhere. I think there's not enough players coming through, so it doesn't matter how they come through. We just need to see them. We just need to see them getting there. But I hope that's the case. I hope our players do come through. Scott Niven, what's Scotland's best 11? I wrote this down, and I'm going to set up as if I was Steve Clarke. I'm going to go 3-5-2. I'm going to play as my goalkeeper, I think, John McLaughlin. I think John McLaughlin was very steady for Rangers before Alan McGregor came back. I think he was very good. I've been a fan of John McLaughlin for a good few years. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I would put him as my starting goalkeeper. My back three would be, I would play Kieran Tierney just to get him in the team, because I wouldn't play him at right back. I would play Kieran Tierney. I would have Liam Cooper, and my third player I've put down Scott McKenna, but I just don't know who else would. The centre half are so weak. We've just thought of that. I mean, we see like Andy Considine coming in. Like, all due respect to Andy Considine, but there must be better. There must be centre halves coming through from somewhere. Left back Andy Robertson's the nailed-on pick in the team. Right wing back, I've went for Liam Palmer. I think he's probably the best out there. Likes of him, Stephen O'Donnell. I would put Liam Palmer in. I think he's been pretty decent any time I've seen him play for Scotland and Sheffield Wednesday. Three midfielders. This is tough because you need to leave a few good ones out. I'm going to put Ryan Jack just in the middle in the kind of holding area, because I think he does that job pretty well, and I think he has got the ability to get forward, which Scotland need that. And the two other midfield positions, I would put John McGinn and Callum McGregor. Callum McGregor, definitely for me. I think Callum McGregor's a great player. I think as well you've got that forward threat, that you've also got that kind of leadership ability that he's learning from Scott Brown. I think he's a natural progression to Scott Brown in the Celtic team, so it might be the same in the Scotland team, but I would have Callum McGregor in, and I'm a big fan of John McGinn. I think John McGinn, particularly this season, with Aston Villa, he's stuck out like a sore thumb any time I've watched him. So I would put John McGinn in. And the two strikers, I would say Lyndon Dykes, obviously, would probably be the number one choice. And I would have him alongside Lee Griffiths. So I would see that I don't know if they're going to gel together, but I can see Griffiths going to Serbia, and I would start him. If he's there, I would start him, because, as I've said before, a fit and healthy Lee Griffiths is the best player on the team, certainly forward-wise, and Lyndon Dykes has done nothing wrong so far since he's been introduced to the Scotland side. So that would be my starting 11, and hopefully that would be the starting 11 that would go to Euro 2021. Regan Ross, who's the most underrated player you've watched in the recent seasons in the SPL? I've got one from years ago, but I'm going to say I'm going to have two. I'm going to have one from kind of recent years. I'm going to have one for years ago. Recently, I think Daniel Koundé doesn't get enough credit for how well he played at Rangers. I think he was very, very good, and he complemented Tavernier really well. Underrated player from years ago, I'm going to go for Ian Jess, and there's a personal reason for this, because Ian Jess is the nicest footballer I've ever had the pleasure of meeting in my life, and I've got a wee story behind that. When every year, when me and the kind of family went, our kind of family holiday every year was down to Blackpool, and we were fortunate one year to stay in the Preston Marriott, and there's actually two footballers connected with this story. And the first day we were there in the Preston Marriott, I walked by Peter Crouch, and I just remember I was quite tall for my age. I was about 7 or 8, so I was pretty tall, but I've never seen anybody as tall as this in my life. And I just remember looking up at him, and I realised the Aston Villa team were staying in the hotel. So basically, I was still to this day, I'm an autograph hunter. If I see a football player, I'll get them to sign something like a bit of paper or anything. I love football, and I'm a football fan. I'm still a kid at heart, really, when it comes to football. So, but I waited all day for every Aston Villa player to come down, and they were all so nice. But me and my dad met Roy Aitken, and Roy Aitken spent a bit of time with us and was very, very kind and offered us tickets to go and watch them play Bolton. And we had a great day. It was a great day. But Roy Aitken, I would just say Roy Aitken was fantastic. If anybody can let Roy Aitken listen to this, I just want to say thanks for that, because that was a great experience for me when I was young, and a lot of respect for Roy Aitken. And later on that day, another bus arrived at the hotel, so I was still kind of looking for teams to come in. It was a Nottingham Forest team, and in that team was Ian Jess. Ian Jess was a really, really good player for Aberdeen. He was an excellent player, a very, very underrated, excellent player. I remember he was linked with Rangers like when I was first kind of growing up, and I just watched him. I thought he's a really good player. But Ian Jess spent a lot of time with me and my dad that day. Spent a good 45 minutes just talking to us, just been very, very kind to a young man like me who just wanted to be around footballers. He was so, so gracious with his time, and I've always said he was my favourite player to ever speak to, and I still stand by that. He was an excellent person. I just want to also invite Ian Jess, if you're ever listening to this, and I'm going to put a wee clap on Twitter, if you're ever listening to this, then if the invitation is open to come on the sit down, because I would love to talk to you about your amazing career. Ian Jess for me would be the most underrated player to play in the SPL, because he was excellent before the SPL, because not a lot of folk remember this. He played for Aberdeen kind of early 90s and had a great record against Rangers in particular, but came back from down south and came back to Aberdeen about 97, I think it was, and he was excellent. He'd learned from his experience in England and just come back a much better player. So it'd be Ian Jess definitely would be my most underrated player. Megan Foley, do you think the COVID-19 restrictions on fans being unable to attend games has affected the performances? I think it did at the start. It was a bit weird to a lot of players. I remember the first game against Rangers played Aberdeen. I think a lot of the players were thought they were in a different world. But I think they've got used to it because they realise it's a new normal, and I think it's going to be the way it's going to be for a good year or so at least. I don't think any fan's going to be anywhere near a football stadium until at least we get a vaccine. I hope and pray we get a vaccine anytime soon, but I think now we're seeing players are just playing normally. I think they've gotten used to it, but at the start it definitely did. I think a lot of players were out of their comfort zone. I think a lot of players do have the fans in their mind when they're playing and have the fans next to them. But now we're seeing a different side of it. Now we're seeing the new norm, and I think a lot of players are getting used to the fact there'll be no fans. So I would say now no, but at the start I would definitely have said yes. Johnny Scott, what's Scotland's chances in the final leg against Serbia? I think it'll be a game that will suit a Scotland team under Steve Clarke, because they'll go there organised. They'll go there being hard to beat, and Serbia have got a lot of threat up front, particularly like Mitrovic, Luka Jovic. Luka Jovic, I think, has went off the boil since he moved to Real Madrid, but he's still an excellent striker. I would say though they're up against it because Serbia are a good side. I did say though I did fancy Norway to come out this section. I thought everybody that knows me and knows me well knows that Erling Haaland's my favourite player in the world right now. I just think he's absolutely unplayable. I love watching him. I'm quite surprised Serbia beat Norway, to be quite honest with you, but I didn't fancy Scotland to come out of this at the beginning. I think it's changed now because they played horrible against Serbia. It was the most boring game you'll ever see, but they got the result. And if they go now, if they take that game to penalties and win penalties, then they've got to a major tournament, so you can't knock them. But I think they'll need to improve from how they played against Israel to stop Serbia, because Serbia will have a lot of chances, and it's up to Scotland to kind of get their own chances and stop Serbia. But I think they've got a chance. I mean, they've got a fighter's chance. I really, really hope Scotland get to the major tournament, because I don't remember France '98. I don't think many fans my age will, but I've never seen Scotland in a major tournament, and I would love to see them in a major tournament. So here's hoping. I hope Scotland get there, but it's going to be a tough ask. Callum Brown, there's been a lot of talk recently around reconstruction of the leagues. Do you think this is more likely now after the shutdown? And what would you like to see if the leagues were reconstructed? I've always said that I think the reason we don't have a higher leagues because a lot of the income is determined on the 4 Old Firm games a season. I think if you took that away, I think the TV deal would be a lot lower. I think that's the big thing. I think it will. I think it needs to change down the lower leagues. I think we need to see like maybe if you do even 12, 10, 16 or something, a 12 team SPL, a 10 team first division, and a 16 team second division, just to make it a bit better, make it a bit of a better league. I think now we'll see. We've already seen the league's been cut down in the Championship onwards to basically make it as easy as possible for the team to fulfil their fixtures. I think we'll see that now. I think that could be an option, but up towards the top of the league, I don't think that will change just because of what I said about the TV deal. But it's definitely something that needs looked at, because right now 12, 10, 10, 10 isn't the answer. I think it needs to be higher. I think it needs to be a bit more towards the kind of third tier. It needs to be more competitive. Make it a 16-team league. Give the teams more of a chance, and because I think there's too many clubs to begin with. There's 42 teams in the SPFL. That's too many. We need to work out how to make that, because 42 teams in the league, not a lot of income's getting split between them. So there are going to be struggles, particularly now when a lot of teams are up against it financially. You will see a lot of teams having to make drastic cutbacks. So we need to accommodate that. We need to see how to make it better for these teams. But I would say maybe a 16-team third tier, just to give the teams a more kind of a chance of surviving more than anything else. Ross Wiley, do you think Scotland can finally make it to a major tournament, and can Gerrard lead Rangers to the title this season? I would really hope they can, because, as I've said, I would love to see Scotland in a major tournament. I didn't see it France '98, but it's a tough ask against Serbia. And can Gerrard lead Rangers to the title this season? I think he obviously can, but as I've said already, we need to get over that blip. We need to see more from Gerrard's team after Christmas. We also need to look at the fact is that why last season didn't work out, because the team at the start of the year weren't losing to Hamilton at home, or Hibs. They weren't losing to any team at home. They were so solid, and something went wrong, and that needs to be looked at. If that happens again, then you need to say, has this team got the nerve to win a league? We all need to see more from Rangers after the winter break. There's no winter break this year, so they should be better. But I think Gerrard can. I mean, there's no doubt he can, but they need to go over that blip. Aaron Lyle, if Scotland can make it to an international tournament, do you see us doing well or just getting leathered as usual whenever we play teams with decent attack? If they get through to the Euros, they're up against England, Croatia and Czech Republic in their group with 2 games at Hampden. Now, I'm not an expert on organisation of football matches, but I don't think any team will get it is better in their. I don't think the group's overly difficult. I don't think England are firing on all cylinders. I think England are still better than Scotland. Croatia aren't the team they were 2 years ago, and we'll see against Czech Republic during the week. But Scotland have beaten a poor Czech Republic team. I don't think that'll be the Czech Republic team that will turn up at the Euros, but I think they've got as good a chance as getting through if they get there, because 2 games are at Hampden. They go to Wembley against England, so they've got home advantage, and not many teams do badly when they've got home advantage in a major tournament. This Euros will be crazy compared to everything else we've seen, but I would say it's going to be difficult. But if they get there, then they've got as good a chance as anybody are getting through the group at least. Stephen Nicol, which of Rangers signings in this window do you think will have the most impact on the team? I've been really impressed with Kemar Roofe since he came in. I think his movement as well just catches my eye. He's 2 yards quicker than everybody else. I just think he's particularly, I think it was against, it might have been Kilmarnock at Ibrox. He was amazing that day. I think he scored as well. He was very, very good. And if he stays fit, he's had a lot of bother injuries over the past few years, but if he stays fit, he's a very, very good addition. I really like Cedric Itten as well. I think Cedric Itten will be a big player for Rangers. I think he's got his goals. There was a lot of negativity with the Rangers fans of how he hasn't scored, he's not up to it, he's another Philip Zebo, all that nonsense. He scored a really good goal against Motherwell, and then scored a goal I love, the second goal I love more than his first one against Motherwell, because that's what I want to see a striker do, just getting in that position. Didn't even ricochet, it was just that striker's instinct of just putting his foot out and getting the goal. So I think he'll have an impact. I think if Morelos doesn't fire in cylinders like he has last season, I think if Itten does well off the bench or even gets a start, if he does pretty well, I think Itten could be the main man. I think Itten could be really good. I really, really like that signing. Jonathan McMillan, if England can get VAR to work better, more reliably, do you think it should be brought into Scottish football? I've said already, I think it should. I don't know if it will, because I don't think the clubs right now are in a position to finance it, and I don't think the league are either. So I would say that's very, very unlikely that it'll get brought in the next couple of years. But I think it will eventually, because it's the new thing. It needs to be anything to give more support to the referees, because the referees have got a very, very difficult job, and it's very, very hard to not criticise them because they make so many mistakes. So anything to help them out, I think it needs to be done. Aidan Rhodes-Smith, do you think the Scottish League is really struggling without its loyal supporters, and how long do you think all clubs can keep their head above water before it starts affecting financially? I think when the follow scheme ends, I think we'll see that. I think we'll see that with a lot of businesses, not just football. Do we know how many teams are in kind of turmoil already? I think there's a lot. I think once that follow scheme ends and they don't have that support to pay their staff that aren't working, I think we'll see a big, big struggle. I think we'll see a few teams get into administration, and it's really, really sad, because nobody could have predicted this situation. Not one person could have predicted the situation, and it's been it was so difficult beforehand with teams struggling to kind of make ends meet, particularly down the lower divisions, but now it's just going to be so much harder. But I hope we get through it. I hope we all get through it. We're all Scottish football fans at the end of the day, so we just need everybody in football, associated with football, was just praying that we get out of this in some way, and I'm really hoping we do. Blair Kennedy, if you were Steve Clarke, what would your starting 11 be away in Serbia next month? I've said that. I've gave my team already. And how do you assess the Scotland national team since Steve Clarke took over? Not easy on the eye, but seemed to be grinding out results. I would pretty much go with that. I would say when Steve Clarke was announced, I thought that's not really where I would be going myself. I thought they would maybe follow the blueprint England have and go with Scott Gemmell. I thought Scott Gemmell was a kind of choice at the time. Steve Clarke, proven manager, done an amazing job with Kilmarnock, but the Scotland national team haven't been easy to watch for the past 15 years, and bringing in Steve Clarke isn't going to make that go away. Now, Steve Clarke's record speaks for itself, but it hasn't been easy in the eye. I've been bored watching the last 4 or 5 Scotland international that I've watched. But they're grinding out results. As I say all along, I've said this for years, it doesn't matter how you play. If you get 3 points and you get a win, then it doesn't matter how you play, just as long as you get the result. So on that side, I would agree with that, but I just don't think there's enough talent coming through that's going to change that. So if we're getting results that way, then albeit. But I would like to see. I'm a big fan of watching football played well, and I just don't like this playing for a draw and getting 10 men behind the ball. It infuriates me to watch it. It infuriates me to watch it as a fan of teams I watch, because you're not playing football the right way, but you're getting results. So can you really moan at the end of the day? Last couple, I've got 2 more, and then I will be closing it. John Hannah, who would you consider for the national manager's position next, and why? I think Strachan should have stayed. I think Strachan's time was up. He didn't deliver his job. He had a chance to get Scotland to a major tournament and didn't get there, so he shouldn't have stayed on, in my opinion. Who would I consider next? I don't think there's many candidates, to be honest. I kind of tried to ram my brains through this a couple of weeks ago when Steve Clarke was under pressure, and I don't know. I thought at the time Scott Gemmell. I did say Scott Gemmell when the job came up and Strachan left, so I would say possibly him, but what evidence have you got to go on? You've just got that thing that it might be better with a younger manager bringing through younger players. But I wouldn't have gave Strachan another chance. I still to this day wouldn't. And we've just got to stick with Steve Clarke. We've got to stick with Steve Clarke, and if he gets us to a European Championship, then he'll be a hero. I don't care how he wins, how he plays football. I'm not a fan of watching Steve Clarke teams. I'm the first person to admit that. But if he gets us to a European Championship, then play the way you want. But his test will be against Serbia, who will be all out attack. They're an attacking side. They've got attacking players. So if you're going to play that way, then play it right and do that. Because every single person that's a Scotland fan wants to see Scotland in a major tournament again. It's been so long, and the heartache, it is heartache, because I'll tell you a story about the time they played Italy in 2007. I was as gutted as I've ever been as a football fan that day when they didn't win. I think maybe only needed a point, if I remember correctly. But a bogus decision by the referee against Alan Hutton. Alan Hutton get murdered, and the free kick went against him. So I would say I would love to see Scotland in a major tournament, and by any means necessary. So let's just trust Steve Clarke to do the job right and get us there. Rab Hume, final question. What is your thoughts on next weekend's Old Firm? If COVID cases rise, will the match be cancelled? Surely if a team can't field a team, they broke the rules. Well, we saw with the Kilmarnock game last week that there's not really a rule in place for that. If a team can't fulfil a fixture, then it will just be postponed and will be played at a later date when they can fulfil it. Do I agree with that? Yes, I do, because COVID can't be controlled, and we can't. If you're going to have games cancelled because players have got COVID, then we're going to have a lot of games cancelled in the league as well. The leagues as well being postponed. So I think the League Cup was different. If I remember correctly, the League Cup, there was an agreement where if a team can't fulfil a fixture, the game would be postponed, and it would be a 3-0 win to the team who they were playing against. That isn't in place in the league. So if that is the case, then all the games that aren't fulfilled will just be played at a later date, as I think Celtic still got a game in hand from the incident with Ball and Golly. So that's fair. That's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I just want to see football. I don't care how. I think every team's going to have a problem with COVID at some point down the line. So let's just get on board with this, because it's surreal times. We've never seen anything as bad as this, and I don't think we ever will again. I hope and pray we don't see anything like this again. But we're all football fans. If it takes that long, it takes that long. But as long as we've got a close and a team win the league fairly, and I really hope we have a strong season, because the teams deserve a lot of credit. I mean, I said this earlier, but the teams deserve a lot of credit for how well they've been doing their testing. I think that isn't spoke of enough. But let's just try and finish this season and have a fair finish, and let's all just get on board with this. That is it. That's the questions all done. Thanks very much to everyone who asked a question. The support was amazing. I didn't think I would get anywhere near the amount of questions I got, and I hope I've answered everyone correctly and fairly. And once again, to everyone who's listened to this show, I really thank you for listening and taking your time out of your day to listen to me talking waffle. But if you enjoy more of this, more of my content, then please listen to latest episodes of The Sit Down. I done an interview with Colin Nish, former Kilmarnock and Hibs man, on Friday. That's out on YouTube and all podcast networks, so it's out on the likes of iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. So you can listen to that, and this will be going out later today. And thanks very much to everyone who has supported me in this journey to getting kind of started up and getting some content out there for you. And as well as that, I'm just going to make a couple of wee announcements on the show. All Time 11 is a new show I've started. It's a show where I speak to fans, players, former managers, and ask them to name their best 11, whether it's players they've played with, played against, or seen live. So the first episode will be premiering next Monday. That is the 19th of October. I'll be announcing during the week who it will be, and I'm very, very excited about that. And as well as that, if anyone's listening to this show and wants to take part in any podcasts or have ideas for shows or anything like that, then please get in touch, because the more podcasts, the more people on board I would really, really like to work with people. I know there's a lot of talent out there in the overall kind of people I know anyway. There's a lot of people I know who really, really come across well when I talk to them. So if you want to take part, then please don't hesitate to get in touch, because I would really, really like to work with as many people as possible. And that's that for this week. I will be back next week with another episode of the Scottish Football Show. I'll be joined as well with guests, and we'll be dissecting the big game over the weekend, will be the Old Firm Derby. So thanks very much for that, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, everyone.